Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's meetup. Today, Mike, Chris, and Scott will be discussing our new set of election solutions. So as a reminder, we'll be recording this meetup, and we post the link to the recording on meetup.com, so you can go check it out there. We always post those about a week after. So if you need to share that out with other colleagues and things like that, you can do that. So during the meetup, if you'd like to make any comments or chat with other participants, there's a chat panel, there's a chat button on the bottom there that you can use. However, if you'd like to submit a question for our team to answer, please use the Q&A panel at the bottom of your Zoom meeting. That way we can go through and answer the questions in various sections throughout the meetup. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Mike, Chris, and Scott, and they'll kick off the meetup.
Thanks, Matt. So election offices are faced with changing behaviors of citizens who often seem disconnected from the democratic process. State and local governments are striving to improve voter participation through open communication and a sense of collaboration. Working with a large volunteer workforce with varying skill levels and aging systems presents unique challenges. The elections office is also often the smallest agency in a government until election day, when it often becomes the largest. Managing an election office, however, is a full-time job with some of the most complex responsibilities expected of a public servant. The most efficient offices produce the most successfully administered elections. And so election offices face many challenges. Helping people understand who their elected representatives are and where they need to vote is inherently location-based. Polling places are being asked to provide more transparency into wait times, so as a voter, I can make a more informed decision of when, and if available, where to vote. On election day, election offices are fielding and responding to many requests from polling locations. Issues with computer hardware, facilities, or supplies may impact the time it takes to vote and the voter's confidence in election staff. Leveraging tools to dispatch staff to the right locations and track them in the field help election offices respond quickly. So what if location was built into the election process? Instead of election staff spending weeks and months gathering together data to support elections, the data was consolidated and managed through a geographic information system, making it instantly available. Instead of printing maps, they could tap into authoritative data sources to make focused apps with intelligent, interactive maps that the public expects. Without coding, they could produce and maintain the maps and apps needed to engage the voters, manage elections, and share election results. So to help clerks, election commissions, and Secretary of State offices address these challenges and leverage location in the election process, we recently released the election solution, which is composed of 3 templates. The election outreach solution template includes a collection of maps and apps that can be used by election staff to educate voters and increase voter participation. The solution provides a modern way for the public to obtain information about current elected officials and locate voting centers or election day polling places. The election management solution template includes a collection of maps and apps that can be used by election staff to report wait times, manage voting center or polling place requests, monitor election day performance, and gauge voter satisfaction or sentiment. The election results solution template can be used to deliver a map-based election reporting application. So election results provides a modern way for the public to explore election results and can supplement tabular results that's typically published by election staff. When you deploy the solution templates in your ArcGIS Online organization, you will get a collection of ArcGIS maps, apps, and layers that work together as an integrated system to help you educate the public, get voters to the right voting locations, manage election day activities, and share election results. Clerks, election commissions, or Secretary of State offices can quickly deploy, configure, and share the entire collection of the election solution templates, or configure and share an individual map or app that meets their specific business needs. It is also flexible, so if you have already deployed election outreach to inform voters where they need to vote, and later want to deploy election management, it will just lay down the maps and apps on top of the already deployed layers in your organization. So it'll just work together. So with that context, let's dive into some demonstrations of these solution templates. I'm going to turn it over to Mike, who's going to start with the maps and apps delivered with the election outreach template.
Thanks, Chris. Like Chris mentioned, we're going to start with election outreach, which is a collection of maps and apps to help you inform voters in your community. The capabilities in the election outreach apps are driven by a few key feature layers that are laid down in your organization when you deploy the solution. So to help you understand and manage those feature layers, election outreach also includes a configuration of ArcGIS Pro called Election Data Management. Election data management includes a set of tasks to help mapping technicians maintain the layers that drive the election outreach application functionalities. The layers in the project are configured to be mapped to those key feature layers that are deployed in your organization with the solution, layers like voting locations, voting precincts, and electoral districts. And it also includes a set of tasks to help you understand those feature layers, how they're used in the applications in the solution, and some key attributes, as well as to inventory and to maintain that data regardless of your starting point. So if you're loading your existing authoritative content into the feature layers, there are some tasks that can walk you through those processes. Or if you're creating brand new data, there's tasks to walk you through common editing workflows to create polling places, voting centers, precincts, and electoral districts. And you can also use the Pro project to steward that data over time through multiple election cycles. For example, as we move through elections and you want to populate what that next election date is, or if you have early voting locations in your community, there's some simple tasks to help you hydrate the content that makes the applications included in election outreach just work. So when you load your content into the feature layers, it unlocks the capabilities inside of the applications. So I want to begin with My Elected Rep, which is a configuration of ArcGIS Pro that would be used by the general public to find elected representatives at the local, state, and federal level, or any mix of those offices. So I can either search by an address or poke at the map, and then choose the desired elected office. So for example, if I choose county clerk here, I can see the name of the representative, the office that she occupies, the district, and then some contact information. And one of the things you'll see through most of or all of the applications in election outreach is an experience here in the pop-up or the information section that is dependent on the data that you're accessing. So there's a few different patterns. The most simple being here for county clerk, I just have one representative for this district. I just have one clerk in the county. But we know for United States senators, there are always two. So the pop-up or the information section is intelligent enough to know that here I've got two representatives, so I need to show some additional information. And along the same lines, here for county commissioners in District 5 of DuPage County, there are 3 representatives. So again, the information section is intelligent enough to know the number of representatives and show the appropriate information. And then one final pattern, if you didn't want to show individual sections per representatives and you just had an at-large pattern that you have many reps representing a single district, you could also just list those names out in one section. Another application included in election outreach is voting centers. And voting centers is used in a few different scenarios, but essentially it's any time a voter is making a decision about where to cast their ballot. 13 states in the country support the voting center model, where a voter is allowed to vote at any location within their jurisdiction. You can think of that in distinction from the classic polling place model, where where you cast your ballot is defined by your residential address. So I can again search by address or poke at the map, and it's going to show me the nearby options based on the buffer distance that I set. And in a similar way to my elected rep, you'll see a few different patterns here in the pop-up section, depending on how the data is configured. So the most simple pattern is I'm accessing this information before Election Day. So the next Election Day at this voting center is November 17th in the future. Location information, some ADA accessibility information, operational hours, when I need to register to participate, and Dropbox information in case this is functioning as an early voting center. On Election Day, the pop-up is going to reformat to show timely information. So now Election Day isn't in the future, but today is Election Day. And I see that those same characteristics of the facility, but in addition to the operational hours, I have an operational status here. So I'm accessing the application in between the bounding hours of the facility. So I'm getting a nice message here that tells me that it's open now. Even in communities that don't have the voting center model, many have early voting facilities, and voting centers can support that workflow as well. Again, it's for any time that a voter is making a decision about where they can cast their ballot, when they have options available to them. So this location is configured to be an early voting center, which means that it's not open just on Election Day like the prior two we looked at, but is open over a period of time. So now I'm not just being told when Election Day is, but I'm being told when this early voting facility will be open, when the earliest date I can cast my ballot. And again, the characteristics of the facility as well. And then finally, I might be accessing this information within that early voting period. So now I'm being told that the voting center is open, and it's open until Election Day. I've populated a wait time for this location, so I'm being showed what the current wait time is, and you'll see quite a bit more about wait times, how they're used in the solution, how they're populated. And then I'm getting a more complex operational status here. So I'm still being told that the facility is open right now because I've accessed it on a day that it's open in between the operational hours. But because it's over a period of time, it's looking a week into the future. And this could be variable. In this case, they're all 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., but in case the facility had variable hours based on outside factors, that could be handled as well. Included inside of voting centers is the option to show wait times, not just in the pop-up here, but on the map. So this is the web map that drives the functionality inside of voting centers. And when you deploy the solution inside the web map, you'll have this layer called voting center wait times as well. So through some simple configuration changes, you could utilize that layer instead of the standard voting center symbol. So I could turn this off, turn on the wait times layer, and now I'm being shown the current wait time that's been populated for each facility, and it's classified, and I can also see the actual number right away. So inside of the application, voters could see the wait time really at a glance without even necessarily having to interact with the application very much. Another application included with election outreach is election polling places. And the distinction here, like I mentioned, is where you cast your ballot is defined by your residential address. So if I reside in a particular precinct, and that precinct has a particular polling place that is the appropriate place that I would cast my ballot on Election Day. So again, I can search by address or place or poke at the map. And instead of merely showing nearby options based on a buffer distance, it's showing me the appropriate polling place based on the district that I've searched within. Again, I'm seeing characteristics on when the next election day is, location information, and operational status. And again, we see a few different patterns based on when I'm accessing the information. So the pop-up reformats again to tell me that today is election day, and I get again that operational status message. And then finally, at this location, I've populated a wait time for today, which means that I'm being shown what the current wait time is for this location. Just like voting centers, polling places comes with an additional layer in the web map that drives the application so that I could, again, through simple configuration changes, utilize that layer so that voters could see the current wait time at a glance right inside the application. And I'm going to pause there. Those are the applications included in election outreach. And Matt, I'll just see if there are any questions.
Yeah, so we had a couple come in. So first question from Tim, are the public-facing apps responsibly designed? He says most of their users are using mobile devices.
Yep, so all three are built on Web App Builder for ArcGIS. They're all configurations of Web App Builder, and yes, respond to mobile devices, which we can kind of simulate a little bit just by pulling this down.
Excellent. And then another question from Eric. Are the elected officials managed in a separate database? He's currently using an Access database to manage their elected officials' information.
They're managed, they're populated and driven by the feature layers that come with the solution. So for example, or in this example for my elected rep, it's this electoral districts layer. So that's sort of what the Pro project is helping you do. It's helping you populate the information that helps those applications go. It's not intentionally pointing at a source different than the feature layer that is laid down with the solution.
All right, and so that was all the questions. We did have a comment from Tim saying the vote centers and the wait times brought a tear to his eyes. So he's done. Anyway, thanks. And that's all the questions for this section.
Okay, thanks. So we're going to transition to election management. And election management is a collection of apps and apps to help you manage election day activities. It's a new area that we've worked on quite a bit. And you'll be able to see how it functions with election outreach, but is also distinct from it. Primarily, the workflows are internal, but you'll see how it is a comprehensive solution with threads that weave all the way through. So Election Assistant is a configuration of our crowdsourced polling application, and it's designed to be used by election day workers, be they volunteers or contractors. And it's designed to do just a few simple functions. So I've got a list of my polling places or voting centers here on the right. I've also got a map, and I can choose my location, and I'm presented with just a few simple options. I can report a wait time, or I can request assistance. So if I click report wait time, it's going to take me to election wait times, which is a configuration of survey 123. And I can simply do one thing. I can report a wait time. This is that data set that we saw inside of voting centers and election polling places. So we're utilizing the folks that are at individual locations to populate the wait time. So I can submit and then return back to Election Assistant. One workflow that we learned is present in communities large and small and with varying complexity is something like an election day help desk or command center. So clerks around the country on election day really run something like a command center, and they respond to issues and requests at individual polling places. They often do that through field workers that will go out and respond to these requests across a community. And that might be as simple as making a call into a central location. It might be tracked on paper. So what we've tried to do is put some tools around that to help election clerks and managers understand that process and be more explicit. So the other thing I can do as an election worker is I can request assistance. And again, I'm taken into a configuration of survey 123, where I can fill out a simple form about what my current issue is. So the form comes configured with some common election day request types. such as computer hardware issues, election supplies, like say ballots running low. We've probably all seen things like that in the news. I can set my priority level. If I choose critical, I'm going to be required to add some comments. And optionally, I could attach an image. So I can submit there, go back to election assistant, and repeat as necessary. So report wait time could be populated at a regular interval, say every hour or every 2 hours or something like that, and then request assistance can be used as needed. One of the nice things about, try to move this out of the way. One of the nice things about the template that we've built Election Assistant on is the use of a URL parameter. So in the beginning, you saw that I had a full list of all my locations, and I've got the map here with all my locations as well. You can use a URL parameter to help the election workers get directly to their location. So you can create unique URLs per location and send those out to election workers, and it's going to send them directly to their location with that facility chosen. And I apologize, I got the URL parameter wrong there. But essentially, when you create a unique URL per location, what they would see is their facility selected already. And then another nice feature of the template is that, like the question previously, it's responsive. So one thing we learned is a lot of communities deploy either phones or tablets to election day workers, or they utilize or election day workers utilize their own devices. And so if I pull this down, I can again simulate what that would look like on a mobile device. And so if I sent out that unique URL for the, in this case, the 5th Avenue station, and pulled it up on a mobile device, this is what I would see. I wouldn't even necessarily have to interact with the map. I wouldn't have to select my location. I would just be presented with what I can do with the application. I can report a wait time, or I can request assistance. And both of those forms also format nicely when they're looked at inside of a mobile device. So when I create a request, what it's doing is creating an assignment inside of Workforce for ArcGIS. And that we manage those assignments with Election Manager, which is a configuration of Workforce for ArcGIS. So this would be used by someone that is functioning like a dispatcher in that election day command center, in that election day call center that can respond to requests. So as requests are coming in, I can check their status. I can see additional details. If there was a picture assigned or a picture populated, I could see that. And I could also assign it to those mobile workers that move throughout a community and respond to those requests. So now what in many communities might have been a pretty implicit workflow can become explicit. I can also create those assignments directly inside of the project. And one type of assignment that you didn't see inside of the election requests form is ballot collection. So another workflow that election clerks and staff perform on election day is end of night chain of custody workflows. So collecting ballots at the end of the night, collecting other election materials at the end of the night, and delivering those to a central facility. So inside of the same election manager project, you could manage your requests and issues as they happen throughout election day. And you can also explicitly track these end of night collection activities. So you can see when they were assigned, when they were completed, who completed them, in case you need to report on those, on that chain of custody workflow. One, and I should also mention that as I assign these requests, Workforce for ArcGIS has a mobile component so that those field workers can see and be notified and update in the field and complete assignments. And then that information will be reported right back here to Election Manager. For example, this one is showing green because on my mobile device that you can't see, I completed the assignment that we had just created. So I assigned it to myself and completed it on my mobile device. One public-facing application inside included with election management is the voter satisfaction survey. So on election day, while we're populating wait times, while we're tracking requests, we also can track and gather voter satisfaction, voter sentiment on their election experience. So most of the questions are dependent on saying, yes, I voted in this application. And then I've got just a pretty simple form to communicate what my experience, my voting experience was. I can populate my location. What time did I vote? I can populate my, I'll say, perception of wait time. This is a different data set than what we populated using Election Assistant. That is your authoritative data set that you could optionally share inside of voting centers or election polling places. But this is your opportunity really to just gauge another aspect of voter sentiment and how long their wait was. So different data sets that might help you answer and ask different questions. I can score the voting facility, the staff, and the overall ease of voting, and then rate my overall experience 0 to 10. I can optionally communicate my age and any other comments that I might want to share. So we're using ArcGIS and using the election management solution, we are populating wait times throughout the day. We're tracking the health and the performance of issues across our community, and we're starting to gather voter sentiment. And those election day activities we can pull together inside of one application that we call the Election Performance Dashboard. So Election Performance Dashboard is a configuration of operations dashboard for ArcGIS that would probably be used by the elections clerk. So there are these election day activities that are going on, and the clerk might want to have a high-level sense of how performance is going across the entire community. So immediately I'm presented with some of those high-level metrics. I can see how many open requests I have and how many of those have come in just recently. So we see one in the last hour, that's the one we created. How many of those are critical? Of those different request types that you saw in the election requests form, the ones that we learned are sort of most critical are election supplies and computer hardware. So I can quickly see how many of those types of requests that I have. I can see the average wait across my entire community, how many locations are in the worst class. So when we looked at the web map for voting centers, we could see that wait times were classified, and the worst class, or the longest wait class, was greater than 1 hour. So I could see how many locations are reporting a wait time of greater than 1 hour, how many surveys I have coming back from the community, and then an overall average score of that 0 to 10 overall voting experience. I could additionally drill in to see particular locations. For example, and the metrics are going to update based on my choice. And because election day is a intense period across just one day, really, I might want to see even how things are going over the last hour or 4 hours or a custom time range. Based on these metrics, I might want to drill in for additional details, and there are tabs that correspond with those request workflows, wait times, and survey results. So if I want to see some additional information on requests, I can access this tab to see breakdowns of the status, priority, and request type. And each of these charts are clickable. So I might be interested in how many unassigned and critical requests we have right now. And then I might want to follow up on those and say, we should get those assigned. I can see the requests coming in over time and see throughout the day where there are peaks. In our data set, that's over a long period of time because this application functions as our try it live experience, but it's configured to show as little as 1 hour. So you can imagine across a day, you might see peaks in the morning, maybe peaks during lunchtime, and peaks at the end of the day. And it might help you make future staffing decisions. I can select an individual request to see additional details and the status. And then based on the status of that request, I'll see even more additional details. So on this one that was completed just today, we can see when it was assigned, when it was completed, and how long that took. In this case, no time at all. I could also filter the request by the field worker that has been assigned. And I could use, in a similar way to the charts, I could use these selectors to show just particular types or a particular priority. We also have a tab for wait times, which shows you really how wait times are performing across your community. So on the left, I've got a breakdown of how many locations have not reported a wait time. We know this might be a new workflow in a lot of communities, so it might help you follow up and say, hey, you haven't reported a wait time. Now that's something we do. We're showing how many are in the best class, which is less than 20 minutes. And again, like we saw in the overview tab, how many are in the worst class. Similar to the requests over time chart, here we're seeing the average wait across the community over time. So again, you might see where peaks in wait are arising and where that might help you make future staffing decisions. I have, just like the overview tab, the average wait across the entire community, and then a list of the current wait at each location sorted by longest to shortest. So I can quickly see my pain points and where I might want to follow up. Those are the information products included in the election management solution. And I'll pause there again, Matt, to see if we have any questions.
All right, yeah, so we had lots of good questions come in during that section. So one, actually right off the bat, I think you covered it during, the question came in before you covered the wait times and how they're collected. So someone asked how are the wait times collected, but I think you did show that piece. Yep. Yeah. And then, so there was another question on, so it is collected via the elections assistant and that survey 123, correct?
So I will say we sometimes get asked in a more detailed way, how are the wait times determined? So we're creating the capability to report the wait times. We've learned from communities various methods for determining that wait time. Is varied as handing out cards to voters in the line, to leaning on the historic knowledge of longtime volunteers. So we don't really determine the method for, or we don't prescribe determining the method for determining the wait time, but we do give you that capability to record it and report it.
Cool. And so a question from Eric. So he was thinking about a tech in the field who can resolve, so a tech who resolves problem in the field, can they redline the data to confirm a problem has been resolved? So I guess if someone's requesting assistance, they can kind of confirm that out?
Yep, so as, if I understand correctly, as a request is assigned to someone in the field, they're going to be able to acknowledge that request. They'll be able to start it, and all of that will be present to the dispatcher here in Election Manager, and they're going to be able finally to complete that request. In terms of if what you mean is redlining on the map, not that, but they can attach additional pictures to the assignment. and provide additional comments. So there is a sort of real-time interaction between the field worker and the dispatcher.
Cool. And so Leland had a question. How is the wait time function monitored? So in the second part, how do you ensure it's not abused or to dissuade voters from going to a particular voting center or polling place?
Yeah, it's a good question, and that's why we made wait time sort of an opt-in component of the solution. For example, when we highlight that there's a layer here that you can optionally show inside of the application. So it's really about your local comfort level, how confident you are in the workflows that you have with your election day workers, and that they know how to determine the wait time, to report it at a regular interval, and that you feel that it's an authoritative enough data set and workflow to share with the public. So that's probably going to be a different answer from community to community on that comfort level. So it's a capability we wanted to include, but not prescribe its use.
And then Kelly had looks like a couple questions that tagged together here. So will poll workers need a login to report wait times or request assistance?
Yeah, that would be the workflow. They would be named users in your organization.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that she goes, or I guess is it best? What is the best way for poll workers to log in so individual are on the same login? So they would have individual named users assigned to them beforehand, and then they can enter that information. Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, cool. Tim asked, do we need to purchase Workforce or Survey123 to run these apps?
You'd need to have the appropriate user type to run the application. So not necessarily an individual purchase price for survey or workforce, but I think both use the field worker user type. So you'd need to utilize the appropriate user type in your organization.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of a follow-up from Tim, what additional software is required to run these apps? So he's asking, do we already have everything we need? That's harder for us to answer on this call, but maybe just a quick highlight. So it'd be just, Enterprise Portal or ArcGIS Online,
so
Survey123 apps, right?
Not Portal on this. Go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just going to say, why don't you show them on the solution site where it'll list for election management, for example.
That'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, while I'm bringing that up, I'll just mention that the solutions right now are designed to work in ArcGIS Online. So we're using some capabilities that aren't currently available inside of Portal. But so I went to solutions.arcgis.com, and in this case, I went to the local government section and to elections. And I'm going to look at the manage election activities capability. And I'll go to learn more here. And the requirements section will let you know what software, what applications are utilized. Everything outside of the Pro project that I showed in the very beginning is our web-based workflows that are commonly used inside of ArcGIS Online.
Perfect. Looks like, and I think so. There's another question we have. Can you explain how assigning of the tasks work? I think we kind of covered that through the workforce dispatcher. Maybe just a quick.
Yep. So as as requests come in, so requests and assignments are really just the same thing depending on the user. As an election day worker, I'm requesting something. As they get fed into Election Manager, the workforce project, here we call it an assignment. So within Workforce, I can simply select the assignment. And in this case, I just have a few workers configured into the project. That would be one thing that you guys do, is configure your field workers into the project and assign from there. And then, so on the field side, on the mobile device, they're going to see just those assignments that have been assigned to them, and then that's where they can pick it up from there and provide status and completion.
Perfect. So, and one more from Sonia. So how many jurisdictions currently use this She says software, but this particular solution set?
So some of on the election outreach side, what I showed was really a modernization of existing solutions. My elected rep, voting centers, and election polling places is a pretty significant modernization, but they were existing solutions, and probably dozens of communities utilize those. The election management piece was just released in March, and we've got a few, I'd say, Scott, in the 3 to 5 range of early adopters that are currently implementing.
Yeah, the stuff Mike's showing you today literally is hot off the presses from about a month ago. So it's brand new and available for this election season.
Yep.
All right, so that's all the questions we had for this section.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to show that third piece of the three-legged election solution stool, elections results.
Thanks, Mike. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so now let's take a look at election results, which is a configuration of operations dashboard for ArcGIS that can be used by the public to view results tabulated on election night, and can also be shared as historical results after each election. So election results provides a modern way for the public to explore election results and can supplement tabular results that are often provided by election staff. So when we open elections results, we're going to be presented a map in the middle, which is our goal to make it very interactive and interesting to explore the results. On the bottom, we have a bar chart here that's listing candidates and symbolizing them by their party affiliation, and showing on the horizontal axis here the number of votes they received overall. On the right-hand side, we have information about voter turnout. So how many ballots were cast, how many registered voters were there in all jurisdictions, and what was the voter turnout. On the left-hand side, we have some filters and some selectors that allow us to explore the results. So in terms of elected offices, what I'm presenting is a list of all the offices that we're reporting results for. So as I step between different elected offices, the results in the map are going to update, as well as the chart at the bottom to reflect the candidates and the number of votes that they received. So I can jump around to different contests. For example, governor, there were 4 candidates, so we're seeing 4 bars. In this judge race, we only have 2. In some of the congressional races, we're going to see in the map that we're only reporting for a subset of the precincts within the county, which makes sense because these are the precincts that are represented by that congressional district. So as I step between the different precincts, I'm going to see the results update. Another thing I can do in this is I can go to a particular precinct, for example, my precinct. So I can scroll through the list, or I can just start to type and it will filter. And when I select one and zoom to it, it's going to zoom me in to the map, show me the results for that precinct, list the bar or update the bar charts for the candidates to reflect the voting in that particular precinct, as well as update the voter turnout for that precinct. We're also limiting the contests that were valid for that particular ballot in that precinct. So you can see now we only have 1 congressional representative because I'm only represented by 1 in my particular precinct. Another thing that you can do in this elections dashboard is you can offer different levels of geography that you're reporting results for. So for example, we've configured this sample dashboard around precincts and municipalities. In this case, it's townships. So instead of now by selecting this municipality filter, we're updating the results to show the results by municipality. We've aggregated the precincts in that given municipality. This could potentially also be counties, for example. If you were showing results across the state, it might make sense to show by county. But the idea to take away here is this is flexible. You can report on whatever level of geography you want to report on, and the dashboard is dynamic and will update to reflect the geographies that you provide. Across the bottom, I also have some additional tabs. So that I showed elected offices, we also show a tab for proposals. So we've separated out proposals into another tab because ultimately the options are yes or no, and we've updated the symbology to reflect that. So similarly, as I select different ones, I'm going to see the map and the chart update. This one I want to particularly highlight. You'll notice that in this case, this General Assembly proposal was pretty overwhelmingly passed, with the exception of one precinct here. But what we did in the map to make it a little bit more interesting, rather than just showing you a solid orange color, which wouldn't be all that interesting, you see some subtle variation in the coloring of the precincts. What we're leveraging here is a transparency. So the precincts that are less opaque represent a greater margin of victory, or a higher percentage of votes went to the option that received the most votes. So in this precinct, you can see yes received 72% of the vote. This more transparent one only received 54% of the vote. So it gives you some visual cues or indication on the precincts within the map that won by the greatest margin of victory. So just another interesting visual cue in the map. The last tab that I have here is around voter turnout. And so this is a more focused map where the symbology in the map represents voter turnout. The darker areas represent a higher turnout. The lighter areas represent a lower turnout. We're also presenting on the bar chart here an aggregation of the number of votes per contest, so you can see which contest had a greater participation by the voters for that particular contest. The next thing I want to show related to election results, so that's the dashboard, and you could see you configuring this around different elections and sharing that on a gallery, so you could have a historical record. Users, the public could go into a particular election and explore the results. For loading your results into the layers that support this dashboard, we really wanted to highlight how we tried to simplify the data structure, because every community is going to manage their results differently and they're going to receive those results in different formats. We really wanted to try to simplify this data model so that it didn't take a ton of effort to load those results into the layers that support this dashboard. So what you get with the election results solution is an election results feature layer that has two sublayers. There's voting jurisdictions, which are the precincts, the municipality, the county, those polygon boundaries that you're calculating results for. And then related to that layer is an election results table. So if we take a look at how that's structured, you can see here that I have a particular jurisdiction, a particular precinct, how many registered voters there were in that precinct, and how many ballots were cast. And from this, we can calculate voter turnout. Then if we look at all the records that are related to that jurisdiction in the related election results table, I'm going to sort here by contest. And you can see for Attorney General in Addison 1, we have 3 rows, one for each candidate, the party that they're affiliated with, and the number of votes they received. So this is the structure. So for every candidate, for every jurisdiction, you are going to load a row into the elections results table. And you will repeat that for every contest. Proposals are loaded into the same table. They just have a different contest category. And the candidates options are yes and no. So there's no party affiliation. So as you load results into this layer, the dashboard will update. There's nothing hard-coded in this dashboard. The contests are dynamic and driven from the data. So if I were to load another contest into my election results table, another radio button, an option would show up in the selector list, and I could explore those results. So it really makes this dashboard powerful. There's not a lot of pre-configuration or hard coding you have to do before the election results come in. As the results come in, you load them into the table, into the service, and the dashboard comes to life to allow you to explore those results.
Hey, Chris, to that end, before you leave that,
Yep.
Could you just show how the different geographies manifest themselves too and in the dashboard?
Yeah, so I touched on this briefly, but essentially what you have, you can do different levels of geography. So you have precinct. In this case, that's driven by the precincts that I've loaded in. I have a list of precincts. I can also jump over to municipality, and I have a list of the municipalities that I'm tabulating results for. So this could also be county, and I could have a list of counties. It's all driven by the data and what voting jurisdictions I load into this voting jurisdictions sublayer.
And if I wanted to, I could even have the actual boundaries for the representative as well too, right? The political boundary.
Yeah, you potentially could. I guess it might be difficult to tabulate results on those boundaries because it's not, the ballot might not necessarily be tied to that level of geography.
But the precincts would aggregate up to it. So yeah, you're right. You could just summarize. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to come to questions, but I want to just finish up a couple of slides, and then we'll answer some more questions if we want to go into election results specifically or anything else. So today we talked about 3 of the election solution templates: election outreach, election management, and election results. And the key takeaway is that this is an integrated system. There are different maps and apps that come with these templates that are intended for different users, both outside and within the organization, but the system works together. And you can take individual pieces and stand them up and work and configure them for your needs, and then add additional pieces as you see value or use in them. So now I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who's going to end with some closing thoughts on where we're going with these solutions.
Thanks, Chris. So Chris and Mike showed you guys today a whole host of capabilities that come with ArcGIS to really help you promote election outreach, manage election day activities, and ultimately share election results. And I just want to share with you some things we're working on now to kind of round out the technology that Chris and Mike showed you. So as a part of the development team, we're really laser focused in on helping you, ArcGIS users, deploy these solutions in your organization. But we're also trying to make it easier for you when you, in cases like this, where you need additional capacity or expertise in a very short period of time. So there's a couple things we're working on to that end. The first thing, and there's a few questions about this today, like how do I empower polling workers who may be volunteers or contracted employees throughout the year and get them access to the applications? And there's a couple things we're working on to do that. One is an ArcGIS Hub initiative and the use of community identities to provide access to polling workers. So that's one way you could add additional capacity to your organization. And another way we're working on is actually a surge licensing model where you just access certain additional capabilities for a limited period of time. Let's just say for election day or a few days around the election. And so know that, you know, in addition to the ability to use existing users you have and with your ArcGIS licensing, we also have other ways that you can kind of scale and expand in the times you need. The other thing we're working on now is actually we have a professional services offering that's available to you if you want additional capacity or expertise to implement these solutions. So this professional services offering will take the technology that we have or leverage the existing technology you have in your organization already and provide all of the activities required to help you implement and ultimately enable your organization, essentially turn on the solutions inside your organization and train your staff how to use it. And finally, while we showed you a great deal of new capabilities today that you can take advantage of immediately, we're also thinking about other enhancements to the solution offering. And we really look forward to the feedback we get from the community because we'll use that feedback in addition to the ideas we've been thinking about to continue to grow these election offerings. So we're thinking about things like political sign compliance and problem reports around polling places. How can I use demographic information and some of the voter turnout information or wait time information that Mike showed you to plan voting centers? And so we're going to continuously evolve these solution offerings based on the feedback we get from the community and the trends we're seeing in this space, and ultimately try to leverage location and location-based technologies to truly modernize many of the election applications in an election division or a clerk's office. So with that, that was just a quick summary of some of the things that really round out the technology that we showed you today. And I think we've got time now to take some final questions. And the other thing I was thinking, Chris, maybe you could just bring up and show them the transparent election story map, because there was a lot of people that were asking about the recording for this meetup, and they may want to be socializing these solutions in their organization. And maybe if you could just show people real quickly how they could go get from Learn the story map, the transparent election story map.
Sure. Sorry, that's on learn.arc. I'm not aware.
Yeah, learn.arcgis.com. Right. Yeah, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. That wasn't in the script, was it?
No.
And if you go to the lesson gallery there, just go to the lesson gallery, Chris, at the top. And then you'll see getting to know transparent elections. So this is a story map that the team produced that walks you through all of the solution templates we showed you today. And we can share this, maybe Matt, we can post the link to this out on the meetup site.
Yes.
And it's just a great way for you guys to kind of go through all of the capabilities that Mike and Chris showed you today. And you can take advantage of this immediately while we're waiting for the video to be produced and posted on YouTube. So I just thought we'd mention that before we take final questions. Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, Matt. Do we want to go through the final set of questions?
Yeah. So let's see. So Adam asked, the election results, I guess all of the solutions require the ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool add-in. Does that cost anything?
No, the add-in doesn't cost anything. It's freely available to download from solutions.arcgis.com.
And then is the elections results configured entirely in ArcGIS Online, or can it be done with, say, Web App Builder Developer Edition?
So the election results dashboard is using operations dashboard for ArcGIS, so it's not using Web App Builder. So you couldn't recreate the same capabilities leveraging Web App Builder.
Let's see. So Eric asked, is it safe to assume that when the absentee ballots do not report back to the precinct, you have to create an additional polygon to relate those absentee results to?
That's a good question. I don't think you'd get the same results if I think you'd get misleading results in the dashboard if you did try to create a separate polygon and link the absentee ballots. We might have to talk about that a little bit. I think it's okay as well. Like we talk with a lot of communities, it's not necessarily that they're making the election results dashboard available immediately on election night. This could be something that's made available the following week or following couple weeks. It's more about having a historical record of the election results that allows the public to go see the results. We're very aware that the public is often going to use, commercial sources or news sources to find election results on election night. And we're not really targeting that audience with that solution. It's more of a historical record of results for a given election.
And then another question, can results be sent through mobile devices such as iPads?
So the election results dashboard it doesn't work well on responsive devices. So it will work on tablets. It'll work well on an iPad or any other tablet. But when you get down to a mobile device, it doesn't size well. The information doesn't come across well. So it's really designed for a desktop or a tablet.
And then another question, can you search for election results by address, or do you have to search via precinct or municipal boundary?
Yeah, it's a good question. It would be possible to configure the dashboard to be able to search for an address. Unfortunately, there's a limitation in the dashboard that it doesn't allow us to select the precinct that that address falls within. So it would zoom you in the map to that location, and you could, when you're zoomed in, you could click the precinct to get the pop-up. But unfortunately, this table and the voter turnout wouldn't update unless you explicitly select it here. It's something that we're talking with the dashboard team to improve that experience.
And this a question before we started the election results section. So how are the results sent to election headquarters?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies from community to community how they're capturing that and how the results are certified and ultimately returned out. We're not really prescribing that flow. What we tried to do is to make the layers that are used in the dashboard as simple as possible. So whatever format you get them in, there's hopefully a less of a burden to extract and transfer that into the layers. So that's what we were focusing on.
Yeah, Chris, your point is absolutely valid. You know, we're not getting into the tabulation business, right? This app is not designed for tabulation. It's really leveraging the data that is already being tabulated in the systems you have. And those systems typically prescribe, you know, how the votes are being transmitted from the local polling places to the central clerk or elections office.
Yeah, this app really picks up after
Exactly.
an election is certified, and you want to have a nice way to communicate those results.
And then one question came in right after we were from like the elections management section. So how do we add our own data into the pro project, i.e. if we have an existing shapefile of precincts or whatever that may be?
That's really what those tasks are designed to do, to help you load your data into those feature layers. It probably was a little confusing because I brought up a project that has data populated in it already. I should have mentioned that. So what if you deployed the solution and you opened up that pro package, it would be configured to point at the feature layers that the solution uses, but they would be empty. And then you utilize the tasks that will walk you through, for example, the append tool, and then a field mapping workflow to help you map your existing, you said, shapefile fields into the feature layer fields and populate the key attributes. So that's really what those tasks are designed to do, is to help you load your existing content, or at least one of the workflows in the project, into the feature layer.
And then are electoral areas available in ArcGIS Online? So such as like state legislative areas or national office races?
It's a good question, but I don't know.
Some of that is probably available in the Living Atlas. I'm just not sure the currency or source.
Yeah.
But I do know they have electoral geography in there.
And then looks like one monitor here. Yeah, looks one last question. So how does within the election results, how does the shading work when districts split precincts?
How does the shading work?
So I guess with the transparency, if the districts are splitting precincts?
It wouldn't, the shading you did, Chris, is based on precinct, right? And the results for that precinct. So it wouldn't, if a district split a precinct, it wouldn't alter that at all.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's based on the geography, right, and the results that were tabulated for that geography. So, each precinct knows its the winner's percent vote, and it scales the transparency based on the scale of the percent vote.
Excellent. So I did want to mention, so that's all for the questions that we have. And it looks like we have some folks drop off, but we'll be posting this. We are starting a new method to capture feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and send this out to everyone. So we're using Survey123. We'd love your feedback on the meetup itself. And like I said, when we post this to YouTube, it'll also be included in the description there, so you can go back and do that. And I'll post that to the meetup site as well, this survey, so you can go back and provide us feedback. So we'd love to hear how we're doing, if we need to make any updates, or how things are going. So that's in the chat as well, and we'll have that on the meetup site. Just want to make mention of that. So we really appreciate everyone attending the meetup today. We look forward to seeing and hearing from you on our next meetup, which is Thursday, June 13th. And we'll be discussing what's coming for the UC 2019 release. So until then, thanks again, and everyone have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Very much.